Hi guys, and welcome back. Today we're going to be talking about optics, in particular hunting optics. So all these ones here are my personal scopes, so I've tried to fill the gap in the way of ELR hunting or LR hunting and your spot and stalk type stuff. So stuff within 500 and past 500. At the end of the day, regardless what application you're using it for, we're all trying to get to the same thing, which is a bright, clear image. And there's a few things that you need to pay attention to when you're purchasing an optic to try guarantee your best chance of getting those three things. And there's three things we need to pay attention to. So one is objective size, the other one is glass coating, or what coating is on your glass, and the other one is your exit pupil, or your zoom ratio. So what we're going to do is break those three things down and talk about each one in a way that simplifies everything and will give you a better understanding of what you're actually chasing when you walk into a gun store and want to purchase a scope. Alright, so first let's talk about the objective size. So the bigger the objective, the more exposure it has to sunlight or to light. The reason why I say exposed to light or more exposure to the light is because just because it is a bigger objective doesn't mean all that light that it's getting is going to be transmitted back through to the exit pupil to your eye. It all comes down to what coating is actually on your lenses. So with this one here, this Gen 3 and this Gen 2, these are my two PRS rifles, scopes. So these are both out of Japan. They both have the same HD quality, and they're both XT rated with fully multi-coated glass, and they've both got 56mm objectives. So I can safely say that these two are going to give me very, very similar image quality and brightness in those low light conditions. Obviously depending on what size I have my exit pupil set at, but if I have them all things equal, they're going to give me the same quality or image and brightness. Now if I move across to my personal hunting scope, which is the Strike Eagle 5x25, it's got a 56mm objective, but the difference is this is fully multi-coated. This was fully multi-coated but had an XT variant with it as well. This here's got HD glass, this here's got XR glass I think it is, or ER glass. So the only difference is this is supposed to be a little bit better in the low light conditions, and it really hones in on the sharpness and color quality. So what I mean by exposure to the sunlight. So what I mean by that is if I have a 40mm objective or a 50mm objective running against a 56mm objective, theoretically the 56mm objective should give me more light transmission through to the exit pupil. But if it's got bad glass, that's just not going to happen. So to give you sort of an idea of how much light you're actually losing, non-coated lenses, you are losing around 10% or 8 or 10% each time it hits glass and leaves glass. So it hits the front end of the glass, you're losing 5% or 4 to 5%. Then when it exits that same piece of glass, you're losing 4 and 5% again. So we'll just say 10% each time you hit that glass. So depending on how many pieces of glass you've got in your particular optic that you're using, that can quite easily stack up very fast, and you can see why it becomes apparent in those twilight shots that you need good coated glass. Straight away with non-coated glass, you're losing over half the amount of light that's coming through. So as it comes in, it's getting reflected because there's no coating on it. It's getting reflected, and each time it hits the other piece of glass, it's getting reflected again. So each time you're losing 8 to 10%. So straight away you're below 50% light transmission. If it was fully coated, which is sort of halfway up the spectrum, you're going to be losing around 4 to 5%. So 2% as it hits, 2% as it exits. So roughly around 4 or 5%. So depending on, again, how many pieces of glass, you could be losing around 70%. For the fully multi-coated, you're only losing 0.5 to 1% of the light. So it's got very, very good light transmission, and a lot of that light is going, because you're only losing 1% maximum for each piece of glass that it hits. So by the end of it, you're still only losing around 6%. or 6 to 10%. With the vortex scopes, a lot of them have around 6 to 10, 12 pieces of glass. So roughly around 90 to 95% you are keeping. That's how much light's actually getting through on a fully multi-coated lens. So with that said, if you got a 56mm objective, like I said, with no coating on it, you're losing over 50%. If you got a 50mm objective or a 44mm objective, but you got fully multi-coated glass, then 90 to 95% of that light that it's getting, it's sending through to the exit pupil. So I would go with the 44 or the 50mm objective over the 56, purely because the glass is letting more light through, which is going to give you a clearer, more crisp, bright image at the end user. Alright, so what we'll go on to next, that we've sort of spoken about objective, there's not a great deal to understand about objective. That's pretty much it in a nutshell. What we'll talk about now is the actual coatings on the glass. We sort of briefly touched on it before, but for the non-coating, like I said before, you're going to be losing over 50%. So how it sort of works, the spectrum works, there's a lot of different coatings you can have, but what I'll do is just go start, middle, end sort of thing. So at the start, like I said, there's no coating at all. You're losing 10% each time you hit glass. So roughly 50 plus of the light you're losing straight away. Halfway up the spectrum is your fully coated, which you're going to be losing around 4 to 5%, which is going to give you around 70%. So you're losing 30%. All the way up to fully multi-coated, then you have like an XT or an XR or HD variants on top of that as well, which is what the Gen 3s have, and the Gen 2. So that there's only going to be giving you around 1% loss each time it hits glass. So 6 pieces of glass, you're going to be looking around 94%. So most of the top end scopes are going to be kicking around that 90 to 95% light capture, which is awesome. But that's pretty much how that works. You do have, like this has got HD glass, which is basically the quality of the image. So think of it as your TV. If you look at something on 480 or 420 or whatever, you go up to 720 and then you go up to HD, which is your 1080, you can see the quality difference. So it's the same with glass in your scope. This is HD glass, so you're going to be getting a very good quality image as it goes through. You do have ones under that where there isn't any at all. It's just a standard piece of polished glass. This one here, like I said before, is ED glass, I think it is, or XD, which is for twilight hunting. So it's a twilight rated glass. So it's supposed to hone in and really sharpen up those colors on those low light conditions. So that's it in a nutshell with the coatings. What we'll go on with now is exit pupil. Alright, exit pupil we can sit there and talk about for quite a bit, but we're not going to. We're just going to hone into the important points. So exit pupil can be two things. It can be a fixed pupil or it can be a variable. So what I mean by that is fixed, which a lot of like bird hunters and all that sort of stuff will understand. Fixed means there is no zoom capability on it. The exit pupil that you get with a set of binos is what you're stuck with. So with these here, these are 10 by 42s, the Furies. So the exit pupil for here, how you work it out is you divide your objective size by whatever mag setting you are here. So with this it's 10. So 42 divided by 10, you're looking at an exit pupil of 4.2, which is good for your daytime hunts and stuff like that, because during the day, I'm not sure if I touched on it before, but during the day, your pupils are going to be roughly around 2 to 4 millimeters in diameter. As you increase throughout the day and it starts getting darker and darker, or you've got an overcast day, as that sun starts to set, your pupils are going to get bigger to try to let more light in. And on those twilight hours, it's going to be around 6 to 8 or 5 to 8, depending on a number of different things, but ballpark figure 6 to 8 at night, 2 to 4 during the day. So this here is going to be perfect during the day. However, once it transfers into the evening hunts, this here was 4.2. Once I start getting up to that 6 and 7, it's going to start getting a cloudier image or a darker image. So my eyeball is actually bigger than the info that's getting pushed through the exit pupil, if that makes sense. So that's it in a nutshell with the binos, if you're running 10 by 50s, you'd have a 5 mil exit pupil. So that's why bird hunters that they really like that really big objective, because it's pumping through a lot of light, and most of the binos have got really good glass in them. Now let's talk about the variables. So the variable one basically means you've got zoom to play with. Now this here is a this one here is the 6 by 36. I'll get my hunting one. So this one here is the 5 by 35. The reason why I went with this, people go, oh, it's overkill. This is going to be my 500 meter scope. So for my hunting and stuff like that. So shots out to 500. Now I've got the 5 by 25 because with this here, with the lens that I've got here, on 5 power, I'm looking at around 11 mil. So a really bright, crisp image on 5 power. Now I probably can't take a shot at 500 and sort of be really in there on that animal or that target at 5, but what I can do, having a variable, means I can now move that and manipulate that exit pupil to where I can get a little bit more closer, or I can bring that target up closer, but I get to play with the light a little bit more. Not a great deal, but enough to make a difference in your shot in some cases. So I'm going to be shooting around 10 to 12 power for those 500 meter shots. That means I'm only using 50% of my exit pupil. So this here, 56 divided by 10, so I'm looking at 5.6, which is sort of going to be right on that borderline of my twilight shots. What I can do, however, is crank that down to 8 or even 5, just to get a nice crisp image, see what I'm looking at, seeing what target I need to engage, or see what animal I'm trying to pick out, and then I can just zoom in to where I get a little bit more zoom, but I can still sit there and play with the light a little bit, just to meet myself halfway with what I'm happy with taking a expectable shot on. And that's sort of it in a nutshell. If I crank that to 25, the exit pupil is going to be very small, so I'm only going to be looking at like 2. Now that's going to be useless for those twilight shots. At 25, I'm pushing out just over 2 mil of data at the back of the scope. My eye is 6 to 8 mil. So there's not much there for my eye to sit there and decipher. And what I do get is going to be dark. It's going to be a lot darker image than what I would be if I was on 5 or 10. So just remember, the more zoom you have, the darker the quality is going to be. The less zoom you have, the bigger the exit pupil is going to be, which means more light can reach your eye. And that's pretty much it without going into it too much. They're the 3 main things you need to pay attention to when you are purchasing a hunting scope, or any scope for that matter that you're going to be using in those twilight hours. Like I said, the Gen 2 and the Gen 3 are overkill. This is just my PRS scope, but the amount of times we've had to use this in low light conditions, it's paid for itself already. So one thing to keep in mind, guys, look at the glass quality over everything else. It's no use having bad glass with a big objective because you're just not going to get that light transfer. Alright guys, hopefully that helped. Any other questions, pop into the store and catch up with some of the floor staff, and yeah, we'll get you sorted out with an optic that's going to be more suited to the application you're using it for. Alright guys.